He was widely considered a leading evangelical conservative activist, particularly among younger Americans. Charlie identified as an evangelical Protestant. Yet he showed at least an interest, if not a fascination, with Catholicism. His wife was raised Catholic. He attended Mass and praised certain Catholic traditions. On September 18th, just 8 days after he was murdered, an article in the official newspaper of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles said Charlie had told Bishop Joseph Brennan of Fresno, California, that he was this close to converting to Catholicism. The bishop's brother wrote the article with the bishop's permission to share the encounter between Charlie and the bishop. The encounter happened during a pro-life prayer breakfast a week before Charlie died on September 10th. The key passage of the article reads as follows. Quote, "It was there at the prayer breakfast that Charlie told the bishop about his Catholic wife and children and how he attended Mass with them. He punctuated this conversation with, quote, 'I love my Catholic pastor,' end quote. As they were parting to attend the more public portion of the prayer breakfast, Kirk mentioned speculation regarding his contemplating entering the Catholic Church, saying, quote, 'I'm this close,' end quote. If Kirk had converted, the fallout would have been massive. His influence among young conservatives and evangelicals cannot possibly be overstated. His base was steeped in anti-Catholic tropes, and they would have seen his conversion as a betrayal. The possibility of donor losses and TPUSA schisms are incredibly likely. Public debates likely would have erupted within Christian circles. And it's in that light that I want to review a conversation an enterprising ex-poster had with Father Don Klein from St. Bernadette Catholic Church in Scottsdale, Arizona. Father Klein is the priest at the heart of Candace Owens' reporting last week, where one of her listeners emailed about an encounter she had with Father Klein that included Erica Kirk and Stacy Sheridan at St. Bernadette Parish there in Scottsdale. And I want to bring up the conversation because I think it's important before I have my follow-up show, I think later this week. I think it's important we get the priest's current story on the record. Because, again, if Charlie Kirk had converted, it would be disastrous, I think, to TPUSA. I really, truly believe that. Their theology was just a little too anti-Catholic, and particularly among their donor base. So here's Father Don Klein. You might have heard Candace talk about on her show an encounter that a potential TPUSA donor had with this particular priest, and her telling of it. Now, Father Klein will, I think, allude either to that encounter or encounters like that. It's my understanding this recording was made with his permission. I could be wrong, but it's floating around out there, so we're going to listen to it. But I want you to listen to how he explains certain things. First thing he will talk about is whether or not he was aware Charlie Kirk was converting. Again, I would think this guy would know, but I want you to hear from him how he describes what he knows. And let's see if we can read between the lines a little bit.
This whole thing with, Charlie Kirk getting murdered has been just so tragic. But I guess he was converting to Catholicism at the end. Is that right?
I don't know.
If you didn't hear him, he said, "I don't know." I think that's a weird answer. And here's the thing, too. I'm not here to say Charlie should or shouldn't have converted to Catholicism. I think Charlie should have followed his heart. If that's where his heart was leading, then he should have. This is not an evaluation of whether Charlie was about to make the leap or whether Charlie should have made the leap. My point is far more narrow. I'm trying to figure out why he's not breathing. I'm trying to figure out why he's dead. And if money had a role in it. In other words, if Charlie's conversion would have caused a significant disruption to TPUSA, you saw how he reacted a night or two before his murder. You saw how he reacted to losing a $2 million donation. He was very frustrated. That was the Jewish donors fit all the stereotypes text. That was the I'm left with no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause text. He was very frustrated. And so I'll go back and start it over in light of that.
This whole thing with, Charlie Kirk getting murdered has been just so tragic. But I guess he was converting to Catholicism at the end. Is that right?
I don't know.
People have been talking about that. So anyway,
I don't know those people.
Okay.
Who's saying that?
Oh, well, there's a lot of people saying that he was converting to Catholicism, like at the end, and he attended like St. Bernadette, right?
Yeah, he would come here for mass on occasion, but I don't know anything about any converting to Catholicism. I mean, that's news to me.
Okay.
So again, that's news to me. I don't know anything about it. The impression I walked away from after this conversation was the reporting must have been wrong. Because again, I don't see how one could conclude after listening to this guy. I don't see how one could conclude that Charlie Kirk was actively looking at whether or not to convert to Catholicism, despite what he said allegedly to the Bishop of Fresno at a prayer breakfast the week before he passed away. Because those two things can't, like, your home pastor would know. You don't just sign a piece of paper and convert to Catholicism. You don't just decide one day, you know what, I'll be Catholic and start going to the Catholic Church. I mean, you can go to the Catholic Church, but to be welcomed into the church, you have to be approved. The priest has to sign off on it. The bishop has to sign off on it. Like, we'll let you hang out in the lobby. We'll let you come in and listen to the service. But if you want to be in the registry as a registered converted Catholic, your priest has to know about it. This supposedly was his priest. And his priest is saying he doesn't know anything about it. And so I have trouble reconciling. And I tend to say maybe the local priest would know. Maybe the Bishop of Fresno heard him incorrectly. Maybe he translated the story incorrectly to his brother. That's why I went in search of an answer, because I have two stories that are not able to be reconciled. I've got a story of a local priest in Scottsdale who said, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about that. And I've got a story in the archdiocesan newspaper in Los Angeles that says, no, he was this close. I suppose it's possible. There's a third possibility that Charlie was all things to all people. And when he was around a bishop that he was trying to be good with, he would tell that guy, yeah, I'm this close to converting. And when he was around the pastor at the parish where he attended mass, he would say, I don't know. Not really looking for it. I mean, that's possible. That's possible. But again, I'm setting up a guest that I think will be able to answer the question for us in a few days. Here is a little more from the priest at St. Bernadette there in Scottsdale.
And did he have like any type of like Catholic memorial service or anything?
Yeah. I'm going to try to respect his privacy. So why is this important to you?
Well, so, I mean, there's a lot of reasons, because people are saying like, oh, he was, evangelical, and they were talking about, I don't know, all the various different aspects of it. But I don't know. So
let me ask you, because this is a point of contention that I believe has been resolved, and I think the priest just sort of hinted at it if we read between the lines. I do believe Charlie had a Catholic funeral, or at least a Catholic service that accompanied his funeral. And I don't know why the guy wouldn't just say, yeah. I don't know if the guy would just say, yeah. Yeah, we did a little Catholic service at the request of his family. I think it's a little strange to me. It's possible the guy's just very poorly spoken. I mean, that's certainly a possibility. He's just very poorly spoken. probably the weirdest 18 seconds or so of this entire interview or this entire conversation. He's asked a very specific question about, do you advise Erica? And he gives a very weird answer.
I mean, you weren't like Erica's like Catholic advisor priest. I mean, the people are saying that as well.
Yeah, I have thousands of people that I advise.
Right.
I'm advising you. I mean, I advise a lot of people. I'm not quite sure what this has to do with Charlie's dad.
I don't like when people won't answer questions. It is so frustrating to me. It is so frustrating to me when you ask someone a question and they answer something you didn't ask. I don't know. I advise lots of people. Now, the reason I wanted to play this is this particular clip right here. It's 26 seconds long, so bear with me. But I think this is an important clip because Candace reported the other day about an encounter in a possible donor had at this man's parish. I believe it was this man's parish. And in the encounter, as Candace described it, in the encounter as the viewer to Candace described it, I don't want to ascribe it to Candace. I want to ascribe it to the person who wrote the email. But in the email from the alleged donor, the story goes as follows. I, the alleged donor, was sitting in the church, and the pastor, this guy, allegedly, came up, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, would you like to go sit with Erica? I thought that was a weird encounter. I wanted to know more about it. I was fascinated when this question was asked, and I thought, all right, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're going to find an answer to this question. Here's how he answered it, which, again, was a little weird.
Right. And then I don't know if you're aware that there's people that are saying that, I guess, during Erica's grieving process that you were potentially connecting her with, like, wealthy donors during that process is what people are saying now.
Yeah, I'm always the last to know. Isn't that something?
Yeah. So I see there's no truth to that at all.
No, there's no truth to that.
Again, I'm always the last to know. If I'm a priest and somebody says, hey, I heard you're out there shilling for a charity, and it's all about the money, is there any truth? No, absolutely not. What are you talking about? That's ludicrous. I would never do that. I would never compromise my authority in this place to raise money for Erica Kirk and Stacey Sheridan. I would never do that. I would never allow my parish to be used as a recruiting tool to sucker money out of rich old people. And when I heard his response, I was a little shocked. I was also a little shocked by this next question, and I'm not trying to smear the guy. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of whether or not he's an honest actor, whether or not he's an honest person. Because I have questions in my head right now about the answer to that question. He's asked about allegations of sexual impropriety. And I want you to hear if he ever says, no, it's not true. It's absolutely false. I want you to just listen because I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it. And when I'm evaluating someone's truthfulness, I want to hear you directly answer these questions. So if I'm listening to somebody and I'm trying to figure out, is Erica Kirk running a scam out of a Catholic parish with Stacey Sheridan under this guy's nose that he's aware of it? When I'm evaluating whether or not there's truth to what Candace said about that, I want to know, is this a guy who's a straight shooter? Does he answer questions the way questions should be answered? And here is the way he answered it. And I was a little underwhelmed.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. And then, I mean, people are talking about also that, like, in your past, you know, there was some allegation of, like, sexual misconduct or something, and there's no truth to that either.
I wouldn't be sitting here if there was.
Look, all you have to say is, of course there's no truth to that. The guy even gave you a leading question. That's the definition of a leading question. You tell them what the answer is. Hey, there's allegations of sexual impropriety in your past. Is there any there's no truth to that, is there? No, there's not. Of course not. That is absolutely correct. I would never do something like that. Not, well, I wouldn't be sitting here if they had investigated it and found it to be true.
Yeah.
I would be removed. varieties, so sexual or otherwise. So yeah, they would remove me if there was any truth to that. Does that make sense? Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the bishops are all over that now because of scandals in the past, right? So they're very much watching that. So if there is any truth to any of that, I would be removed. Otherwise, you're accusing the entire church of hiding something.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was scandals in the past about that, so they're very sensitive to that. So
they are. So they would remove me if there was any improprieties. Just so you know. So I think you see what I'm saying here.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to have to see what you're saying. I want you to answer the question. I don't want you to say, I think you see what I'm saying. No, I don't want to have to interpret what you're saying. Are they true or not? These allegations are surfacing. You've obviously been elevated beyond anonymity because you have people talking about the fact that Charlie was in your parish and Erica's in your parish. And people are looking around and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, this guy may have had some impropriety allegations in the past. And it's a perfect opportunity to say, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. It's absolutely not true. There's absolutely no truth to any of that. Now, I want to play one more thing. I don't want to spend a whole show on this one guy's conversations, but I am very suspect about his ability to answer a straight question. Let me say it that way. I don't want to call the guy a liar yet. I might after a few days from now, but right now I'm not calling him a liar. I want to show you a weird question because I'm not aware in the United States, particularly in an upscale suburban community of Phoenix, that a lot of priests get death threats. But a lot of people get weird when they start getting death threats and they start being compliant or they start going along with things they might not otherwise agree with. Listen carefully as the subject of death threats come up. And again, I'm not knocking the guy. I'm not suggesting that I know he's being dishonest or anything like that. I am suggesting it's difficult to judge whether he's a truthful person when he won't answer a question. That's weird. That's weird. Particularly when people are accusing you of things. Most people issue flat out denials. Absolutely not have I engaged in any impropriety. Absolutely, not am I running a scam in my parish. I'm not knocking the guy. I'm letting him speak. It would be very easy for me to come out and say, yeah, there's this priest and he's on the record and he's unreliable. I don't know. I'll let you hear from him directly. Here's the last clip I want to play of this. And there's some other good stuff in here, but I don't find it valuable airtime. But this is the last one. It's about death threats.
That happened during COVID. It was the same thing, and some people kept going. And anyway, so.
Well, she's on a global stage now, though. That's different. So, and she has threats on her life, I'm sure, and as do the kids. So, that could be a dangerous situation. So you just can't, you have to be, prudent about that. Correct.
I could have sworn I heard him say it. He said that there's threats to the life on the kids. Who is threatening Charlie's kids? I'll play it again. Who is that true? Is anyone threatening Charlie's kids? Let me play it one more time.
So,
well, she's on a global stage now, though. That's different. So, and she has threats on her life, I'm sure, and as do the kids. So, that could be a dangerous situation. So you just can't, you have to be, prudent about that. Correct.
I suppose, yeah. There's so she does have actual death threats on her from where?
I have no idea.
Yeah. That's terrible if that's the case, but some people also say that they get death threats and they don't really.
Oh, I do.
You get death threats?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've had one death threat myself, but I didn't tell everyone about it. I've had a death threat before. I don't broadcast it out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
To me, that's breaking news. To me, that's breaking news. If a parish priest, I'm done with the this clip. If a parish priest is saying that there are death threats on the kid's life, I think that's breaking news. I also think it's breaking news if there are death threats on the priest's life. Guys, It's weird. I mean, just the whole thing is weird. I hate to bring it up. But if we're gonna cover this thing fully, and there are these allegations of those type of things being run in this guy's church, and there's this incredibly animated, I don't want to say defense, that's not the right word. If there's this incredibly animated, vehement push to deny that Charlie Kirk had any interest in Catholicism other than perhaps the buildings were pretty nice and it was a quiet place for him to get away, which could be true. I mean, they are pretty nice, a lot of them, not all of them. Some of them look like gymnasiums, but a lot of Catholic churches look pretty nice, and they are generally quiet places to get away. But this unbelievable push to deny that he had any interest more than that, it's a little weird. And when we're trying to establish that, and as we talked about in the open, it potentially could have cost TPUSA its existence, I think. I think we deserve some kind of an answer. Could this have been at least part of the calculation for why he's no longer alive? So that's it. I gotta sometimes venture into uncomfortable territory, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Speaking of Erica,